Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight, your Uncle Jim is going to be talking to you about the shortage of nephrologists in the United States and all over the world, frankly. So I thought this might be a subject of interest. Um, I had a couple of guests. They wanted to change dates, so I had an open date last week. I thought I should do something this week because you guys keep writing me wanting to know if I'm okay. And yeah, I'm okay. So, don't worry about your Uncle Jim. If there are health updates that, you can always check me out on Facebook. Um, so tonight we're going to be talking about the concern that experts have over a shortage of nephrologists in the United States. So the way I set up my talk is we're going to talk about a shortage of doctors in general, the shortage of nephrologists, why there is such a shortage, and some of the things that can be done to overcome this issue with kidney doctors. So, in general, there's a shortage of doctors in the United States, and this is kind of a worldwide crisis, by the way. I read an article recently in the New York Times entitled The Moral Crisis of America's Doctors by EYAL Press, EYAL. And by the way, if you want any of the citations or studies or things that I looked at over the week to write this out, please go to my broadcast on my personal Facebook page. If you go to the comments, all of that information is in there, all the links and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So at any rate, I read this article. The article stated that doctors were struggling with filling out electric forms of paperwork, taking time away from visiting with their patients, trying to comply with requirements from insurance companies in order to get correct treatment and accurate medication for their patients that were ill and had serious illnesses. Many of the physicians were frustrated and unhappy because, quote, the healthcare system made it so difficult to care for their patients, they were suffering from what the author referred to as a moral injury, where the demands of the administrators, hospital executives, and insurers forced them to stay away from their ethical principles, do no harm, patient issues first. And the pull of these forces left many doctors anguished and distraught, caught somewhere between their Hippocratic oath and the realities of making a profit from people who were at their sickest and most vulnerable. A survey found that nearly 1 in 5 healthcare workers had quit their jobs since the start of the pandemic, and that an additional 31% had considered leaving as a result of this moral injury. This form of doctor burnout has resulted in a shortage of approximately 50,000 physicians, which is particularly damaging in rural or remote areas. So why are all these doctors quitting? In 2021, Medscape took a survey on why doctors are quitting, and here's what they found. About 8% of doctors, representing about 1,600 practices, shut down altogether in 2020 due to COVID-19's impact on business. The pandemic caused stress, financial loss, and other problems for doctors. But this physician dissatisfaction with the profession has been going on for years, including years before and after COVID. So a 2018 survey found that 54% were considering retiring in the next 5 years. 30% of those were under 50. So what are the main reasons that all of these doctors want to quit. Well, first, there's the burnout thing. Half, or 47% of doctors say they are burnt out, up from 42% the previous year. Female doctors in particular are saying that they are suffering from burnout about 56% more than the 41% of their male colleagues. And emergency medicine and critical care are now among the top burned out specialties. The top cited factors for burnout include, again, too many bureaucratic tasks, lack of respect from employers and colleagues, too many hours at work. 4% of the doctors say they quit their practice due to burnout. 1% have attempted suicide, which surprised me, and 13% have felt suicidal from time to time. However, respondents say they were burned out even before COVID. So doctors are quitting the profession because aging baby boomer doctors, pandemic concerns, excessive bureaucracy, reduced time to spend with patients, and reduced insurance reimbursement from managed care companies all have led to personal decisions over the concern for public welfare. Second is increased verbal abuse and bullying from their patients. Just a shout out to a couple of my friends. Thank you for tuning in, Elizabeth and my friend Bobby Reed. Thanks, Bobby. Good to see you guys. So, doctors are leaving the profession due to increased verbal abuse and bullying. Some doctors report that they've been cyberbullied or harassed or threatened when they try to counter misinformation, whether it's about the COVID vaccine or other issues. Harry Severance, an adjunct professor at Duke University School of Medicine, often speaks to doctors about career options. And he says a physician recently confided in him that the verbal abuse that he had been receiving from patients had him contemplating quitting. And, quote, when patients seem to turn on their doctors and accuse them of not operating in their best interest, that's a strong motivational force for leaving the clinical practice altogether. For unhappy physicians already on the fence, this is like a final straw. The other thing is insufficient income. Doctors, especially in less lucrative specialties or low-paying residencies, and what we're going to find out later on in our talk is that nephrologists are in this group. They're like second to last, but we'll get into that. Struggle to pay their expenses, like student loan debt, the average being somewhere between $241,600 and with many 25% exceeding $300,000, and malpractice premiums as much as $100,000 a year to $200,000 a year annually. So insufficient pay was cited by 28% of the doctors as a burnout case in Medscape's 2022 survey. And again, among the lowest pay for residents was nephrology residents. They're getting paid about $63,300 a year. When you consider that the guys that are at the top are receiving $100,000, $125,000, maybe as high as $150,000, you begin to understand why people in nephrology want out and why students don't go into that. And we'll talk about that a little more again. 4, the long hours and lack of family time. What this means is that the average doctor is working 53.4 hours per week and may have 24/7 weekend on-call periods. A University of Michigan survey found that nearly 40% of female doctors chose to go part-time or quit entirely after 6 years completing medical training, citing family conflicts, something that less than 5% of male doctors do. In that same Medscape survey, physician burnout was reporting too many work hours, cited by 34% of the docs overall. More female doctors expressed concern over work parenthood conflicts, 40%, than did males at 29%. Want to give a shout out to my friends Steve Belcher and Jonathan Trailer, I'm sorry, John, for checking in. How you guys doing? Good to see you. So those things are causing problems. Number 5, dealing with electronic medical records. EHRs, you know everything in medicine is abbreviations, right? EHRs have been the bane of many doctors' existence in recent years, particularly the older physicians. The survey cited that they feel that these type of medical records and inputting is the most difficult to use and interferes with doctor-patient transactions. Some of them have gone so far as to hire a scripter, someone that types in the information for them while they're talking to their patients. So, you know, if you have to input data into a computer during your office visits, rather than maintaining eye contact, you know, it's not unreasonable to miss things. So dissatisfaction with electronic record keeping has been linked to higher burnout scores, and burnout can lead doctors to quit the clinical practice or medicine altogether. 6, just too much bureaucracy. Too many bureaucratic tasks was by far the highest rated reason for physician burnout in this Medscape 2022 survey. 60% of the doctors cited it. Physicians spend nearly 25% of their time on non-clinical paperwork. A 2016 report found that they must deal with insurance companies, document compliances with particular government regulations, and track quality data, among other administrative chores. Doctors who go into medicine work directly with patients, and they find this basically joyless and frustrating to have to put in electronic records. And, you know, I know that you guys have read before, sometimes the electronic records don't work and they're not all uniform. So that is a problem. The 7th reason is a lack of independence. Now, you know, when I was a kid, I had an uncle that was a doctor. He had his own practice. He was associated with government agencies and he was on staff at hospitals, but he essentially was working for himself. That is no longer the case. The majority of doctors today no longer work for themselves. As of January 2022, 74% of the physicians are employed by a hospital or a corporate entity. And according to a study by the Physicians Advocacy Institute, increasingly doctors work for large group practices, many of which are owned by profit-driven private equity firms. Doctors may be assigned larger caseloads than they feel is optimal, and they're told how to treat their patients by administrators focusing on the bottom line as opposed to what's best for the patient. Some physicians, for this reason, may choose to quit medicine rather than to reduce care. So, as my friend Elizabeth is mentioning, medical malpractice claims have played a factor. And the other thing, the American Medical Association expects a wave of retirement from the boomers, guys my age. A significant portion of the physician workforce is nearly at the retirement age. Complicating this is not only are the doctors getting older, but their patients are getting older. And as a result of that, there's an increased complexity in healthcare technology, and the rise in chronic illness have all played a role in contributing to more retirements. And when you think about it, kidney patients, they're expecting a large rise of acute kidney injuries as a result of the virus, COVID-19. So any advocacy group that I'm in has been saying, you know, we kind of expect, you know, the number of patients from 37 million in the United States to go up, not down. So that seems to be consistent. So the medical specialty of nephrology has a shortage. Why are current nephrologists leaving the profession? Because, you know, as far as kidney patients are concerned, it sounds like we need more guys, not less, right? If the number of patients is going to go up, if the cases are getting more difficult, help, right? You know, we need our docs, we need our kidney docs, our nephrologists to help us. So as of 2022, there are an estimated 10,370 to 12,939 nephrologists currently practicing in the United States. Studies have shown that that number is declining. Despite a continued rise in chronic kidney disease patients, the global nephrology workforce has shrunk and is failing to meet the growing healthcare needs of this vulnerable patient population. Many expert groups on workforce planning, such as national and international professional organizations, predict further reductions in the nephrology workforce over the next decade, with potentially serious implications, obviously. So although the full impact of this has not been clearly articulated, what is clear is that the delivery of care to patients with CKD may be threatened in many parts of the world unless effective country-specific workforce strategies are put into place. The problems include a lack of desire on behalf of medical students to enter into the profession of nephrology. And this is coupled with the large number of nephrologists who are considering retirement. Recent surveys launched in January of this year by Nephrology News and Issues and the American Nephrology Nurses Association show that 40% of the people that responded to their survey indicate they will leave kidney care in the next 3 years, and close to 17% are indicating they're going to do so within the next 12 months or the next year. More than 70% of the respondents said they would be leaving nephrology and retire rather than to continue to practice in any way, shape, or form. So that's a little disturbing. The other thing that this survey shows is the percentage of USMGs, that's domestically educated doctors, have decreased selecting nephrology as a field to go into. This percentage of USMGs entering that specialty is lower now than it has been for decades, despite the increase in U.S. medical and osteopathic graduates. According to the ACGM, and they're a group that measures what specialty doctors are going into, 68% of the nephrology fellows in the academic year 2013 to 2014 were international medical student graduates, IMGs, compared to less than 40% a decade earlier. Between 2002 and 2006, nephrology recruited a higher percentage of USMGs than general internal medicine. But since 2006, that proportion has been decreasing in nephrology. So in 2014, nephrology fellows conducted a survey, and it indicated that the current job market for new nephrologists is limited, especially with IMGs. Those are foreign doctors. As noted in the report, the job market appears tight, especially for this group, many of whom must practice in federally designated underserved areas in order to obtain a visa, allowing them to stay in the United States. More than 56% of IMGs with at least 2 years of training report difficulties in finding a satisfactory position, compared to only 22% of domestic docs, the USMGs. So the job market is particularly tight near training site, as fellows have more of a positive impression on the national job market and the local job market for other specialties. Despite the tight job market, there appears to be jobs available if nephrologists are willing to relocate or locate to less attractive areas. So the number of applicants through the National Residency Match Program, the NRMP, this is a group where if a medical group or a medical school, something like that, is looking for people to fill a position, they can put out a notice that goes to fellows, board certifieds, residents that might be interested, in order to find a specific match for that employment. The number of total applicants to nephrology through the NRMP has decreased steadily over the last 5 years. In 2010, there were 1.5 applicants for available slots, but in 2014, only 0.8 applicants for each fellowship position. And they told me that from 2014 to the present, that number continues to go down. So while the cause of the drop in the interest of USMGs, that's the local docs again, is probably multifactorial, a soft job market appears to be playing an important role. The Nephrology Fellows Survey results suggest that there are limited jobs opportunities, which is consistent with the studies in the literature review. In a study from New York State, surveying residents and fellows completing training in that state, found that the demand for nephrology fellows completing training in academic year 2002 to 2004 was relatively high, but by academic year 2012, it had fallen to 22nd of the 25 specialties reported. So near the bottom, right? Out of 25 specialties, nephrologists finding work, we're talking about a very small percentage. That the students don't want to go into this line of practice. So why is that? Why don't medical students want to go into nephrology? For many students during medical school, nephrology is complex and a difficult course, which has led them to not consider the field when selecting a specialty. In other words, the class, the lab work, all that sort of thing is harder than some of the other specialties. And 31% of the respondents indicated nephrology as the most difficult course during medical school. Recent surveys have found that residents are reluctant to pursue nephrology because of inadequate financial compensation, the broad scope of clinical practice, and the complexity of the patient population. We're not easy patients, man. Let's face it, we're not. For these reasons, a lack of interest in the subject is the most common reason medical students and residents say they won't pursue a career in nephrology. 92% of trainees cited personal interest in a subject, namely nephrology, as the most important factor affecting their choice in a specialty. Other factors include work-life balance, access to mentors, and exposure to the subject. Other issues include frustrations in dealing with hemodialysis patients, especially those that have perceived noncompliance, and the lack of intuitive or forward-thinking type options for the patient. For example, my dad was on dialysis in 1983. When I went onto dialysis in 2012, relatively nothing had changed. And if you think about all the advocacy groups that always talk about, you know, we need more innovation, we need more innovation, we need more money for innovation. More money for innovation will save money to Medicare and their end-stage renal disease patients. This is one of the reasons that young nephrologists don't go into, or young doctors, residents and fellows, board-certified guys don't go into nephrology. A survey of internal medicine subspecialty fellows revealed that 31% indicated that nephrology was the most difficult course, and only 26% had considered nephrology as a career choice, just considered it. So nearly 1/4 of the respondents said they would have considered nephrology if the field had a higher income, the subjects were taught and well trained during medical school, a lot of complaints about that, and residency training, which apparently doesn't exist. The top reasons for not choosing nephrology were the belief that patients with end-stage renal disease were too complicated, there was a lack of a mentor, and that there were insufficient procedures in nephrology to help the patients. So, you know, this is a big issue. Let me get caught up here for a sec, guys. So, interest in obtaining fellowship training in nephrology has declined among U.S. medical graduates in the past decade. But there are more nephrology fellowship positions that have opened up. There's an increase, and the number of nephrologists currently are not meeting the demand. There's a disconnect between supply and demand, particularly with regard to U.S. medical graduates pursuing nephrology training. Nephrology has experienced the steepest decline in the ratio and number of fellowship applicants per position, from 1.6 to only 1.1 between 2018 and 2012. That profession, our kidney doctors, the biggest decline. So that is a real problem for people like you and me that know we're going to need help. So, what are some of the possible solutions to this shortage? Suggestions include, from the Kidney Disease Screening and Awareness Program, is an educational model that strategically targets college undergraduates in the United States and cultivate their interest in nephrology. It's the kind of get them while they're young sort of feeling. Promoting early exposure to the specialty may be beneficial, particularly if it's associated with strategies to sustain the interest in nephrology during medical school. Community outreach programs through which student volunteers can organize and provide free health screenings and education on kidney disease and its risk factors, primarily to undeserved populations. And as you know, as kidney advocates, we're asked to do a lot of things like that, to speak out, to go visit our members of Congress on legislation, all of that sort of thing. Number 3, on-campus activity enrichment, including seminars on universal precaution and professionalism, professional training workshops, meet the patient, you and me, right? I've actually been in a hospital setting where I was asked, because I have PKD, would you be willing to talk to some of our residents about polycystic kidney disease? And I'm thinking, 1, 2 guys, 3 guys maybe going to show up. I had a room full of folks. I had some people that were standing in the hall. Can you imagine that? They're asking your Uncle Jim about polycystic kidney disease? I'm thinking to myself, where are the other doctors? I mean, I can only tell you what goes on in my life and what little bit I know. Now I know where all the other doctors are. They ain't. That's the problem. 4, effective training programs at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels and the adoption of novel recruitment strategies. There are some countries that are doing very well finding nephrologists. And this is a form of recruitment that has not been adopted in the United States. So perhaps we ought to change and maybe work more toward those recruitment strategies. Flexible workforce practices, greater ownership of the traditional nephrology landscape, enhanced opportunities for research should all be part of the implementation process. Number 5, focus on scholarship and research funds. Hey, let's help our guys pay their way through school. How about that? Where there are shortfalls and capacity constraints in any health system, scholarship and research tend to be cut first. That's a mistake with the nephs. Okay. However, it is a fact that without scientific investigation, there would be no dialysis, there would be no kidney transplantation, there wouldn't be a lot of the novel and new things that you see going on in kidney disease currently. Although there is an onus on the renal community to ensure that research and scholarship remains at the forefront. I mean, how many times have our national advocacy groups sent us out to ask for money? I mean, seriously, how many times have you been in front of Congress and said, okay, our last ask is funding, right? So both to advance our understanding of the disease and to attract greater minds to the field. We want smart guys, right? There's evidence to suggest that student engagement in research at the undergraduate level tends to carry over to postgraduate careers and studies, and these physicians are more likely, these students are more likely to pursue research careers. 6, the presence of role models or mentors is probably the major factor that needs to be addressed. Strengthening nephrology in medical school with good professors who, in addition to traditionally teaching the subject, can also serve as role models, mentors, get the students out in the field, get them to see, what working with guys like you and me, ladies like you, are like. Increasing contact with kidney patients, as an example. Students are in the field, are there because of some of the actions that they have seen performed. 7, kidney educators should try to make it fun, simple, less complex, especially in this area of nephrology. Innovative tools and technologies, as well as novel educational methods such as problem-based learning, creative writing exercises, nephrology puzzles, role-playing teaching games, e-learning should all be a broader part of the strategy to improve recruitment in nephrology. Nephrology courses, number 8, to address current topics such as bioethics and cultural competency, although concerning this deficiency creates an opportunity to widen and broaden the scope of the discipline and introduce a multidisciplined approach focused on innovative ideas, combining training with critical care and procedure skill training, interventional nephrology. There are opportunities to improve the attractiveness of nephrology among physicians. 9, we have to take steps to increase the current satisfaction of the guys we already have, the current nephrologists. 10, as my friend Elizabeth's been saying throughout the broadcast, we got to pay these guys more, increase financial compensation. Again, we're not an easy group of patients. We're tough to diagnose. We're tough to treat. The dialysis, transplant type decisions are tough. Preemptive transplant is frequently not emphasized, as what we've discussed before. We have to do things so that nephrology becomes interesting to our students and keeps our current professionals where they are. Nephrology should use successful experiences as models when discussing strategies at a national or international level. So I hope that this has given you some idea about the issues that we're having with current nephrologists, with students, medical students, board certified guys, residents, fellows. Yeah, John, you're right. They should make treatment cheaper, but pay our guys more. I like that. I like the idea that you're saying insurance is to blame. Can't go wrong with that strategy, John. So, any rate, I hope to bring this to your attention. Please drop me a note, a line. Let me know what your thoughts on this are. Have any of you experienced problems because of a nephrology shortage? I've had a couple doctors retire, in the 40 years that I've been dealing with this. So I know what that is like. Okay, let's talk about upcoming broadcasts. Elizabeth's right. Insurance is to blame, and it's getting worse. Let's talk about upcoming broadcasts. 6:30, June 30th, we're going to be talking to Mark Scotch. This is the second broadcast with Mark. He recently did a bike ride to New Orleans. We're going to be talking about his experience and his stops. 7 of July, Chelsea Roman's going to be on the broadcast, kidney patient. We're going to talk to her about what's going on with her kidney issues. Helene and Gregory McNamee. Gregory is seeking a transplant. Helene is his mom. We want to make sure that we get them in, give Greg a chance and his mom a chance to make a pitch. The 21st of July, Bruce Tippett is going to be on the broadcast. Bruce, as you know, is a sports reporter. He has started a sports program for youths and for disabled people, kidney patients, kidney kids. So we want to talk to Bruce about that. The 28th of July, my friend Cynthia Infante is going to be on the broadcast. We're going to talk about her experiences with kidney disease. 8/4 tentatively, and I hope this one goes through because this guy would be a real cool guy to talk to. David Perchinsky is on the broadcast. He is seeking kidney. I got a feeling about David. He's going to be a real active kidney advocate and a darn good one. So 8/11, Nira Dal, PhD, is on the broadcast. We're going to talk about her experiences with polycystic kidney disease and research. 8/18, my buddy John R. Brandon Braden is going to be on the broadcast. We're going to talk about his advocacy experience and the new group he's with and the projects that they're involved in. 8/25, we're doing a little international thing. We're going to be talking to Vasandhara Reaganhaven. Hang on 1 minute. I'm going to make sure I get this right. We're going to be talking about her book, Who Lives or Dies with Kidney Disease. Very interesting book. And full disclosure, your Uncle Jim's in the book. So we're going to be, and Vasandhara is an international advocate. You've heard of the Kidney Warriors, right? Well, that's her group, and she visits all over the world. And we're fortunate enough she's going to come to Portland next month. So we want to make sure we get that broadcast in with her. A broadcast with Jennifer Aranda and Stephanie Straffi, another kidney group, kidney patient type broadcast. Ed Hearn is going to be on a broadcast September 8th. Do you remember Ed Hearn, catcher for the New York Mets? He's had kidney issues over the years. He's had multiple kidney transplants. A very down-to-earth guy. I can't wait to get him on and have him talk to you. The 13th of October, James Brown, a friend of mine that I met at the NKF Summit this year, great kidney advocate, just a terrific kidney story. We want to make sure we get James on to tell us all about it. 10/27, a broadcast with Kelly M.K. Hitchman. She's a PhD. We're going to talk about kidney transplants and compatibility. A little bit different than just matching. There's more to it. So we're going to learn about that. November 3rd, broadcast with Emmett Henderson III. He is the CEO of Male Lupus Warriors. He's going to talk to us about lupus. We haven't had a lupus broadcast before. It's something I've been itching to do for a while. So, we're going to be checking out Emmett and the lupus. 11/17, our friend Gene Blankenship is going to be on the broadcast. In the recent issue of, I'll make sure I get this right, the DPC's Citizen Kidney, there's an article about Gene in there. I also met him while I was at the summit this year. Fascinating guy, interesting kidney story, very outgoing. This is going to be a fun broadcast. I'm looking forward to it. 12/1, I finally got a date set with my buddy, Leon Collins. Leon is a kidney patient seeking a kidney transplant. He's also recently wrote a book called She, S.H.E. A male person writing from a female person's point of view. Evidently, he's done a very good job of it from everything that I've read. So lots of interesting stuff to talk to Leon about. So that is our broadcast for the evening. And hey, I managed to, John is right. Let's get universal health care passed. Way to go, John. I just wanted to say thank you again for tuning in. And I hope the broadcast has raised some questions in your mind, things to check out. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week with our buddy Mark Scotch. So in the meantime, my friends, Keep breathing, as my friend Kent Bressler says. All right, you have a good evening. I'll talk to you soon. I'll be sharing this all over the various platforms. So if you have a friend that missed it, let them know that the replay is going to be available very soon. All right, you have a good evening. I'll talk to you later.